Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. So Nicole was telling me that in between episodes, while I was downstairs making a cocktail, she could hear all the chaos going on in my house.
I felt like I was spying on your whole family.
Yeah, I guess even though my headphones are like down, because of the microphones here, right? So you could just hear anything happening in the hallway. Yeah. It's all right.
It was interesting. Just
the day in the life,
Exactly. Yes. Children talking to each other, talking to their parents.
Well, where we are in time, this is going to come out like almost a full month later, but we're the day before St. Patrick's Day. And so my child thinks that St. Patrick's Day should be a real holiday. She's like, do we have school? And I'm like, it's not that kind of holiday.
I was going to say, it is a real holiday.
Well,
it's not a day off kind of holiday.
Right. It's not a legal holiday in the US, but she had to ask Alexa, and it is apparently in Ireland and the UK, a legal like a federal holiday.
But not in Scotland. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, she just is like all into it. She has a whole outfit with like a tutu and like a shirt, and she has
now,
like
are you guys
green.
Technically Irish?
I am. They are obviously watered down version. So I am, let's see, less than a quarter.
I was going to say, what did your ancestry tell you?
I know I have an ancestry, and it's less than a quarter. It's less than I think we originally thought, because I think the English is more than we thought. Here, I can bring up my ancestry DNA and tell you. I think we've had this like discussion, right?
Briefly, yeah. I said how mine was not at all surprising, and it was kind of boring.
Yes.
Although now, because I do have the medical side of it, I can do a little bit of research now.
That's true.
Which also, I thought you would find this funny without me divulging all of my medical information. I found a shirt I need. It's called the Bendy Bitch Club. Like, that fits me to a T.
That's cute and a little suggestive.
A little. I mean, in every way.
All right, let me give you my breakdowns here. Let's go. They needed 2-factor authentication for my ancestry because,
Should I pull mine up then? So
my DNA is,
You show me yours, I'll show you mine.
All right, so because they keep updating it, so it's even like more specific, I guess, than it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're constantly updating stuff because I get like updates like every month. It'll tell me.
Right. Yeah, it keeps like giving more specifics. All right, how do I get to DNA origins? Here we go. My Western Europe, okay, Celtic and Gaelic. 8% Southern Wales, 4% Donegal, Ireland, 4% Northern Wales and Northwest England, and 2% Munster, Ireland.
Like the cheese?
Apparently.
Wait, is it Celtic or Celtic? I've always used a hard C.
I don't know.
You said Celtic, like the basketball
Celtic
team.
or Celtic, whichever you want to call it, and Gaelic, whichever. But of those people, so if you add up like that whole area, if you count Wales in there, so 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18%. So I'm 18% of that area. Everything else is a whole mess.
I'm 18% of that area.
But they keep making it more and more specific. Apparently I'm 1% Swedish, so,
Okay.
A lot more German.
Well, I proved myself wrong. According to my most updated, I am 27.4% Irish.
Oh,
I'm more Irish than you are.
Look at that. See?
From Belfast. Oop, I clicked too many things. But yes, okay, so Northern Ireland, United Kingdom, and Republic of Ireland, County Mayo, County Dublin, County Galway, County Roscommon, County Cork, County Kerry, Leitrim, I don't know that one, Olfey, Waterford, and Clare tracks.
Yeah, it's confusing because they have just too many things now.
Too many options, yeah.
Yeah, they break it down so much that, like, I don't know. My one side, it's actually funny because I think they have your one parent on one side and your other parent on the other side.
Mhm.
And one is like tiny little slices, lots of them,
Yeah.
and one is like 3 things. I think my dad's side is the 3 things. My mom's
So
side
now,
is like,
so what is the smallest percentage that you have, since we're delving?
I don't, because it has so, I guess it's the 1% Swedish. I would say that that's the smallest. I have a lot of Germany, 18% Southern Germanic, 3% Netherlands, and 1% Northwest Germany. I have a bunch of England, and then a lot of like Central and Eastern Europe. That's my dad's side, I guess. Why is it so loud out in my house? Sorry, people. I mean, you can't hear it probably. It like gets like cut out, but
I am
what else?
0.2% Czech, Hungarian, Slovak, or Southern Polish, and 0.2% Ashkenazi Jew.
Well, that Ashkenazi actually opens you to some genetic things, but you're not
I
that
know.
much. So,
And
that's good.
0.4% Indigenous American, which I didn't know that.
Really? That is
Yes.
an interesting. So what's interesting is
It
technically
doesn't tell me what tribe, though.
my grandfather's last name is like Czech, but that's not even listed in the Central and Eastern European. It's listed as Lithuania, Northeastern Poland, North Central Europe, and Southern Poland. It's not. It doesn't show the Czech, but his parents came from there because I found like the immigration stuff. I guess so. Genetically, they're not from there.
Yeah.
Geographically, they were.
Does yours tell you your maternal haplogroup?
I don't know what I'm looking at. I feel like the whole thing looks different than it looked like the last time I was there. I feel like even what you're telling me and then what I'm like, you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
I have 23andMe. You have Ancestry, so yeah.
There you go.
So the maternal haplogroup always like makes me laugh because apparently every female can be traced back to, I think it's 7 different female lines.
Okay.
And then they tell you any famous people who are in that female line.
Ooh.
So I'm related to Marie Antoinette is what I took
Are
away
you
from this.
kidding? For real?
I'm not directly related, but we have the same haplogroup, which you may have the same we may both be related.
I mean,
to
I
Marie
do
Antoinette.
have some French. The
lady
side.
lost her head, so I don't know if it's something I should be that excited about.
But what's funny is that's not even listed, which is even weirder because I know for a fact that she was French Canadian, but maybe I guess their ancestry.
Well, it says
Germanic could be like
she's haplogroup H, which is one of the more dominant general European population haplogroups. So it doesn't really mean anything special.
all the random European places and people. So who knows? Yeah, interesting. But I'm about 18% of that Irish area, so we'll take it. So my kids are like 9%.
So I'm more Irish than you are.
You are. And I've got the green eyes and freckles and fair skin. Look at that. But I think that's my German side.
I was going to say we both have green eyes, though. So
that's true. You have light eyes, too.
Yeah.
But I think that's more my German side, actually, I get that from.
Which is interesting. We both have green eyes, which are not very common color eyes.
They are not at all. They are the rarest type.
Really?
Yeah. So,
I guess so. I was going to say I thought hazel was, but hazel's more common.
Hazel is just a combination of brown and green. So my oldest child has hazel. My sister has hazel because my mother had brown eyes. My father had green eyes. Boom. I got the green because she carries a blue from her mother. My sister got the green brown. And then me, my husband, he's a brown for sure. Both his parents are. Well, one of his grandfather had light eyes, but I don't think he got that gene. And then, younger child has brown eyes. Older child has hazel eyes. So that's that whole little Punnett square, people. Go back to...
I have my dad's exact eyes. My mom has blue eyes, but I have the exact color eyes that my dad did. Yeah.
Thanks. And I also have a green drink today. And she also asked if that was to do with St. Patrick's Day. I'm like, not exactly.
And you're supposed to say yes. You just appease the child.
I'm like, not
Let her
really.
believe in magic. Why are you going to ruin
what's it
things
about?
for her?
She asked me, what's your episode about today? I'm like, I don't know. I have to look at my notes.
You should have said, it is about leprechauns. Just make her happy for the day.
For all the things I have to talk about, this is the one subject that I was like, not going to get into.
I mean, you are talking about something green.
True. Exactly. And this is a weird green, the drink. It's like a cloudy blue green.
It's a trippy green.
It is a trippy green. It is definitely different. All right. Do we want to talk about the craziness? Because I said my notes are all over the place and very long.
I say just let's get into it.
All right, people. So I had a choice to make with this, whether I was going to...
to make.
I did. Well, whether I...
You make it sound so intense. It was not Sophie's choice.
Whether I was going to do a traditional cocktail themed on this, or if I was just going to go and get a THC-infused drink, because they sell those now in New Jersey, because we're a state with legal...
You know, I could have had one of those while I listened to your episode, but I'm not
Yeah,
going.
I haven't tried them, and I figured trying that on a Monday night for the first time wasn't really a good choice, and so I decided on this.
They're hit or miss. It depends. I had one that just tasted like straight up apple juice, and then like an hour later, you feel kind of nice.
Okay, so this is called the liquid marijuana. It was from YouTube. We will link it in the show notes. It is 3/4 ounce Malibu coconut, 3/4 ounce spiced rum, 3/4 ounce Midori, 3/4 ounce blue curacao, 1 ounce of sweet and sour, and 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice. Essentially, there's no shaker involved. You put this all in just a normal glass over ice and stir it. And it's actually very nice. It's very I like pineapple. So pineapple, rum, coconut.
Yeah, it sounds tropical.
It really is. It's really good. I don't know if it's called liquid marijuana because of the color or because all of a sudden it's going to make me feel like I'm high. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. We'll find out.
We'll find out together. We're in this together.
So let me take a nice sip of this before I get going. I really do enjoy the pineapple though. It's really good. So I'm going to go through a couple of major movies that have to do with marijuana. But the main one I want to talk about because it's the most out there and became a cult classic for the opposite of what it was trying to accomplish is Reefer Madness from 1936. So we talked about this briefly. There was also a musical, which I did not watch in
with Kristen Bell.
Recent years. Did you see the modern one?
With Kristen Bell? No, I just know she was in it. I didn't watch it.
All right. So the original is supposed to be literally like a cautionary tale. It is not supposed to be funny. It is not meant to be crazy. It's supposed
but
to
it sounds like it didn't age
bad it is, but it has become such a pervasive thing, and it's actually where 420 comes from. They weirdly in the movie flash briefly, almost weird
I thought 420 was the penal code for possession.
Well, maybe it is, but they flash the number on the screen very briefly. It's a weird subconscious thing during the movie. It's very random, so quick that you almost don't know what it is. But I feel like it's weird subconsciousness. So this movie was in 1936, and the original title of this movie is called "Tell Your Children." It starred people that you're never gonna know who they are: Dorothy Short and Kenneth Craig. And basically,
they sound lovely.
Yeah, it was it's an anti-marijuana propaganda film originally made to warn parents about the dangers of cannabis. So first of all, people in the 1930s, the teenagers looked like they were 35. They all wore suits all the time. Everybody
and they all spoke like this.
Yes, for real. It's so weird. I'm are you a teenager? It's very random. So the film starts with this forward claiming that marijuana is a violent narcotic causing uncontrollable rages, and the story about to be told is based on actual events. And they show a high school principal addressing the PTA meeting to warn parents about this dangerous new drug threatening their children.
Let me guess. Is he wearing a bow tie?
He might be. I mean, he's very severe looking and very serious. So the main villains, in quotes, of this are a couple named Jack Perry and May Coldman. They run a marijuana den out of their apartment, which is really funny.
I want a den. That always sounds fun.
Because
a sex den, a marijuana den.
Yeah, people come over and just hang out and party there, but you don't really see the money exchange. I assume that the whole point of this is that they buy, the marijuana from them, but they never show that part. They just show this is the house to hang out at. They suck people in and bring them back to hang out and party.
Sounds like a good time to me.
It's very funny. So supposedly they supply the drugs to teens and young
hold on
adults.
1 second. Should we give context that was this illegal at the time?
Oh yes,
federally.
Marijuana was illegal at the time.
Okay.
They supply drugs to the teens and young adults, and they use a piano player at the local bar named Blanche and a smooth talking associate named Ralph to pull them in.
I knew Blanche was up to something.
To hook young people on marijuana for profit. So it starts out with two clean-cut high school students, Bill Harper and Jimmy Lane. They're lured into the apartment by Ralph. Bill is a good student with a girlfriend named Mary Lane, who's Jimmy's sister. The boys begin frequenting the apartment to smoke marijuana, and their behavior starts deteriorating. They become erratic, irresponsible, and reckless.
Wait, is this where Mary Jane comes from?
I don't know. Her name is Mary Lane, so I
I
don't
know,
know.
that's why I was like trying to make a.
I'm not sure. Well, I mean, marijuana, Mary
No, I
Jane.
know, but I'm
You
just
know?
like thinking of like,
Or
all
maybe they
these
use it as a
terms
play
we
on
use.
words. I don't know. But it's funny because in this movie, whenever they're smoking the marijuana, it's like colored
Mm-hmm.
smoke. Like they colorize it as like green or like pink.
Now,
Whereas they're
Technicolor.
smoking cigarettes, it doesn't show that. But if it's marijuana, it's colored in the air.
And cigarettes were basically passed out to all children at this time.
Yeah, pretty
in life.
much.
Yeah.
You started smoking when you were like 7.
You were given a pack for your 5th birthday.
So things spiral quickly. The film shows marijuana is causing near instantaneous psychosis among everybody. Like, we all know this in real life. It does not do that. Like, some people cause psychosis, but not in every single person. Bill, who's high on marijuana, gets behind the wheel and strikes a pedestrian, leaving the scene. The assault on Mary, Ralph, in a drug-fueled frenzy, attacks Mary when she comes looking for her brother. During the violent struggle, Mary is accidentally shot and killed. So like this
for it.
Inhibits you so much that somehow you pull out guns and shoot people.
Yeah, where'd he get it from?
The gun? I don't remember the story of the gun, but it was totally like...
It was gifted to him with his first pack of cigarettes.
So the whole thing is they like make it look like somebody else did it and sort of blame it on them, which stinks because they like feel so guilty for it. It's like they were so high they didn't remember that they didn't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't happen. If you're conscious and moving around, you're going to know what happened. You're not blacking out. Jimmy witnesses Mary's death and spirals into madness. He's eventually institutionalized, having been driven permanently insane by marijuana use. And Blanche, who's the piano player who witnessed the shooting, is manipulated and terrorized by Jack to stay silent. And then, of course, there's a trial for the murder. Jack tries to pin Mary's murder on Bill. Bill is arrested, tried, and convicted, sentenced to death for a murder he didn't commit. And the drug ring attempts to suppress the truth. Eventually, Blanche, racked with guilt, eventually can't take it anymore. She confronts Jack in a chaotic, drug-crazed rage. Jack beats Blanche to death, or she falls to the death, depending on the version. Law enforcement closes in. Jack is arrested and sentenced to death, and Blanche's testimony given before her death ultimately exonerates Bill. It's the whole thing. Like I said, it's crazy. The film returns to the principal giving the PTA the lecture, completing the framing, basically finishing up saying that they have to take this marijuana menace seriously and talk to their children. And the final title card repeats the warning about the dangers of the drug. So it's just so over the top. Like it's ridiculous. It really is. But
it's like an after-school special on steroids.
Big time. Like, at least an after-school special, I felt relatable to the target audience, who would be the kids. This is completely unrelatable to anybody who would be of that age. It's so out there. So I'll talk about really quickly a couple just fun depictions of marijuana. We all know Cheech and Chong in the 1970s. So Up in Smoke, which is a post-Vietnam, distrust of like institutions. And it's the first Cheech and Chong film. It's a stoner comedy that became a cult classic. And essentially the movie is about Cheech and Chong, who are two clueless, perpetually stoned guys who meet by chance on the side of the road, and they become friends over their love of pot. And one was recently kicked out of their parents' house and the other one's just looking for fun. So they stumble into a bunch of misadventures, driving a van made entirely out of marijuana, unknowingly, and smuggling across the U.S.-Mexican border. So it's a lot of like just silly antics.
I'm just thinking of the guy whose name I'm blanking on from Stranger Things, like the pizza delivery guy who's like high all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's very Cheech and Chong like.
He is. He totally hits exactly what they were going for back then. So it's very like loose plot, sort of just fun time comedic sketches sort of like put together. But it was one of the first things that really took it from like, all right, come on guys, let's be a little silly about this. Then we jump ahead like 20 something years, 25 years. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Have you seen that one?
I've not, but I've been to White Castle.
It involves Neil Patrick Harris.
I know.
Like a cheetah or something.
I mean, Look, I met Neil Patrick. I believe he would ride a cheetah.
So yeah, this is a 2004 comedy that follows two friends on a surprisingly epic late night quest for food, because the whole stereotype, which is fairly true, that you can get the munchies when you use marijuana. So like these two guys, the one Cho is an overworked like investment banker, and Kumar Patel, who's played by Cal Penn, who later worked for Obama. So that's quite interesting.
And who like really turned it around. He's one of those actors who like used to just be like meh, and now he's kind of hot.
Yeah,
he's in that commercial
yes.
about how he got hot all of a sudden. It's like, yeah, you did get hot.
So after getting high one night, they see a White Castle commercial and they become absolutely like fixated on it. But the thing about White Castle, and I don't know if our people who live in other places even know what White Castle is. There's not a lot of them.
It's an amazing fast food chain that tastes even better when you're drunk or high.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them. That's part of the whole point of this movie.
Which is ironic because I can name 4 of them on one hand, but it's because we live in New Jersey, which is where the majority of them are.
It's like a regional thing, exactly. And I know there's one like very close to where we grew up, but there's
2 near where we grew up.
Okay, I'm thinking the one on Westfield Avenue.
Yeah, there's one in Elizabeth, there's one in Union, there's one in Old Bridge.
Oh, wow.
And there's one in New Brunswick.
Okay.
And there's one I know 5.
You know all of them. But they make these little tiny sliders before sliders were cool. We used to call them rat burgers. I don't know, because
it's probably not actual meat.
Yeah, but they were like, you could get like a case of them. Like they're like little like
you can still get a Crave case.
Yeah, they're thin little just grease bomb things. Now I need to go get White Castle.
Lots of grilled onions on them.
Yeah,
you can also get chicken rings, which is chicken in the shape of a ring. And honestly, they're not bad.
So they're actually looking for White Castle in New Jersey. So the trip to the nearest White Castle in New Jersey turns into a series of wild, escalating misadventures. There's like a extreme sport gang called the Freak Show. They have a run-in with a cheetah. They get arrested. They cross paths with a tow truck driver who won't stop singing Wilson Phillips. And there's something involving a party in Princeton with a raccoon.
I was going to say, are they coming from Rutgers? Is that why they're in New Jersey?
That sounds about right. I haven't watched. I didn't. I'm just trying to think of like I watched Reefer Madness for this because I hadn't seen that, but I didn't rewatch some of these other ones that I've seen in the past.
I just feel like that makes more sense because if you're on the main campus, it's the most central of all of New Jersey.
Yeah,
so it would make sense for them to kind of go on these misadventures.
Yeah, and they keep running into Neil Patrick Harris, who plays himself,
and who does not live in New Jersey, sadly.
No,
it's just a lie they're perpetuating.
He steals their car while on a drug-fueled bender. They do finally make it though. And they get their food. So that's good. And then Pineapple Express, which came out just 4 years later. Seth Rogen, James Franco. So that's a big one. I feel like
they just played themselves in that movie.
Yeah. I mean, Seth Rogen in particular.
It seems so authentic that I feel like that's just who they are.
But
and
this
then wait, what's that other movie that they're both in where it's like the end of the world? It's like, and who's Hermione from Harry Potter? Emma something. I was going to say Emma Stone. That's the wrong Emma.
No.
Emma Watson.
Watson, yeah.
So the one guy's having a party and she goes to the party and it's the apocalypse, the end of the world, and this crater opens up and Emma Watson falls in it and they're like, Hermione!
Oh, wait, yes. I do know that movie.
I feel like it's not a sequel to it, but it's connected enough that like, because they're high and it's the end of the world and a lot of the same actors. Yeah.
But anyway, this is technically like an action movie, which is even funnier. So it's a stoner action movie. Seth Rogen's character plays like a process server. He smokes weed constantly, and his dealer, who's played by James Franco, is like sweet and dopey, good-natured, and he got his hands on a rare strain of marijuana called the Pineapple Express. But everything goes crazy when they witness a corrupt cop and a drug lord commit a murder. They panic and flee, but not before dropping a roach of the Pineapple Express at the scene. And because the strain is so rare, it can be traced directly back to them. So they freak out and they go on the run, and it's just chaotic, escalating chases, fights, close calls. It's actually a good movie though. And they try and like hunt them down. Along the way, they get to become like good friends, and it builds to like over the top action movie style shootout at Ted's compound involving Saul's own supplier, who keeps improbably surviving seemingly like fatal injuries throughout the film. But it's a funny one. So Nicole told me all my reference to marijuana movies were
all
old.
of them.
I can name some others.
I
I've
said
not seen
that there
any
are
of
just
these.
a lot more modern references.
All right. So these are the other ones I came up with from my new boyfriend. Oh, P.S. Listeners, Chat is no longer my boyfriend. Claude is my new boyfriend because Chat is canceled.
So as you can tell, Tara breaks up fast and moves on even faster.
Chat, not so ethical. Some stuff they wouldn't agree to with the government. So we're cool. And we've moved on to Claude. But Claude
Do you have
told
to pay
me,
for Claude?
no, I'm still using the free version. I mean, all of these have paid versions, but I'm using a free version. Other movies they've mentioned, another one with Danny McBride and James Franco in called Your Highness, 2011. The Sitter, 2011, Jonah Hill. Ted.
I feel like he's another guy who seems like he's probably
high all the time. Ted, which we know, that's with the bear, Mark Wahlberg. Neighbors, 2014. Long Shot.
I did see that one. That's
another Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Neighbors is when they move in next door to the frat house.
Yes, and then Long Shot is Seth Rogen apparently and Charlize Theron. And then American Ultra, Jesse Eisenberg. He's another one. I feel like they all very typecast.
Yes. They seem like stoners, so they play stoners. And you know what the ironic thing is? Most of them probably have never used it all, but they just have like that persona.
That look. I don't know. Seth Rogen, totally.
I mean, they all say, I feel like Seth Rogen has publicly said, yes, he smokes weed.
Yes.
Which, another one I could add to your list, I don't know if it's on there, the producer.
No, that's not on here.
I mean, not the producer, the studio. Seth Rogen, he just won an award for it. But there is a hilarious scene where basically he's running a production studio and he's trying to get his whole staff together, like pull their shit together to have this really good movie, whatever would come before a premiere. So it's like they're promoting a movie they haven't filmed yet. And Zoe Kravitz is going to be in the movie. She's playing herself. And she accidentally gets high because she eats like 10 chocolates that she didn't know were mushroom chocolates. And then a bunch of other people at the party get high because they just took too much. And it's shenanigans.
Apparently there's some dramas because those are all comedies. Mid-90s, which came out in 2018 with Jonah Hill. Beach Bum, 2019, Matthew McConaughey. And
Matthew McConaughey definitely gets high.
Yes. And horror dark comedy, Assassination Nation. I don't know. So let's talk about.
Wait, we know two celebrities who absolutely get high because they've built businesses around it.
Okay. Snoop Dogg.
And Willie Nelson.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yes, for sure.
And they're very public about it. So we're not shading them. We're just being
we're just
accurate reporters.
Exact reporters. That's us.
Yes, I'm reporting today.
Trusted journalists right here.
Yeah, I'm a journalist. I didn't know what the word journalist was, but I'm a journalist.
Oh my goodness. So it goes by many names. Cannabis, pot, weed. What else?
I've heard people call it dope, but I always thought dope was heroin.
Dope is heroin.
But I've heard people call weed dope. No. I feel like it's like people older than us called
old people
dope.
Who don't know what they're talking about.
People. We're not that young, my friend.
Nowadays, I feel like we use cannabis a lot more. We've gone back to like
because I feel like there's a whole industry around it now.
Right, exactly.
So that's why we're using the actual term.
Exactly. And we're going to talk a little bit about the compounds within cannabis, THC and CBD being some of the active compounds.
TSH? No, that's your thyroid function.
That's your thyroid hormone. It's okay.
Maybe it's impacted by your use. I don't know.
So let's talk about what it does in our body. So what's interesting, our body has something called an endocannabinoid system.
I knew this. We make our own cannabis.
What's interesting is there are compounds in nature that our body has specific receptors for, like even nicotine. There's nicotinic receptors. So it is kind of interesting and evolutionary wise, whether that was not planned, but like how that came about essentially.
Well, we also have like our internal opioid receptors. Like there's lots of them.
Exactly. So you were born with this. We all have it. Our body naturally produces.
Oh, I thought you meant me personally. I was like, how do you know? Was it on my DNA?
Our own cannabinoid like compounds. So endocannabinoids. And we have receptors specifically to interact with them. Cannabis works because it essentially hijacks that system that we already have. There's kind of two main receptors that we care about. CB1 are located primarily in the brain and central nervous system. So the memory, pain, perception, appetite, mood, coordination, and CB2 in the immune system and influence inflammation. THC, which we all know, is the compound that gets you high, that binds very strongly to the CB1 receptor. So that's psychoactive. That's why it causes things like euphoria, altered perception, increased appetite, otherwise known as the munchies, impaired short-term memory, and altered judgment. And that's why high-dose THC can cause anxiety in vulnerable people. And people can say paranoia, psychotic symptoms, and we'll get more into that. And then there's CBD. So that's cannabidiol, and that's very different. It does not typically have like psychoactive properties. It goes to the CB1 receptors like THC, but it's more complex. It works in the signaling system and interacts with your serotonin, which we've mentioned before, but that's one of your neurotransmitters. It's a well-being chemical and influences how other compounds can bind to that. And that's why it doesn't get you high. And it's also why the therapeutic profiles of like THC and CBD are different. And so in New Jersey, we had originally just medicinal marijuana, and then now we have recreational, but the dispensaries do break down on the products typically, like the ratio of THC to CBD, so you can know kind of what you're targeting. And the people who work there are actually fairly knowledgeable about these things. So there's a lot more out there than back in the day when, Cheech and Chong were just smoking some grass, as they would call it. So basically, the cannabis plant contains like 400 chemical compounds, and 60 of them are cannabinoids. So there's a lot that can interact with our body, and there's a lot more that we need to learn about it. And it's going to vary between products. So have they talked about strains, like cultivation of different strains? And that can make both our analysis of like the medical properties or potential medical properties and like the way we can recommend things is very complicated, because we're not just talking about one compound. Like when we make a drug, we know what that molecule is, but this can have 400 different compounds in it. And so we can't know everything, right? So do you know what we actually have had FDA approved already though in the past from this? Have you ever heard like
CBD, but you mean like before that?
No, so like what's actually FDA approved? There are 3 drugs, 2 of which are like more known, or at least that I've known more about, that are actually FDA approved pill type versions of this.
No, I was thinking like I know long before it was legal, it was approved for like to address like nausea and like chemotherapy and stuff like that.
So that is.
I just don't know the name of it.
Marinol is like the common name, or the brand name. Nabinol is the chemical name. So yes, that was FDA approved for cancer and HIV patients to help with nausea and appetite. And that's been around since the 80s. So that's been around a very long time. And the evidence is pretty good on that one. So there's synthetic THC, and they help with nausea and vomiting from chemotherapy and AIDS-related wasting syndrome. And, they were around before we had certain anti-nausea medications like Zofran. So they were kind of the go-to back then, but they had also the secondary thing that they did help with appetite, and they're legitimate medication. So it's a controlled dose THC in a pill. There's also the one that's a little bit newer, something called Epidiolex, which is something that's used for a very severe seizure disorder called Dravet syndrome, and another one called Lennox Gestalt syndrome, and something else called tuberous sclerosis complex. And those are very catastrophic seizure disorders. These things actually damage the brain because these have uncontrollable seizures that typical medications do not help. So this one is actually CBD.
And those you're born with, they're not acquired?
Yeah, you're born with. I actually have a patient whose son passed from it. He made it, I think, 20 or 21, but he eventually passed. It's a very, very severe Dravet syndrome specifically is what they had. But their quality of life eventually declines because it's constantly damaging their brain. So this is something that has been more successful than traditional seizure medicines for these patients. And that's newer for sure, like in the 2000s for sure that it came out. And there was one other one, Nabinolone, which is also for the nausea. That was the other one. So these actually have real, true FDA-approved indications, and they have real studies, and these are not in the forms that we're used to seeing now, which is smoked or vaped or edible or whatever. These are pill-type medications. So now here's where we get into the gray area, because we don't really have the best. We have nothing that has been FDA approved for these other conditions. So I'm going to give you the evidence we have thus far on these other possible things that marijuana could help. Neuropathic pain. So that's pain from your nerves, which is very tricky to treat. And there are only basically 2 medications in the market that have a clear indication and some off-label use medications. So diabetic neuropathy, something called post-herpetic neuralgia, which is after you've had shingles and you have pain that lasts, MS-related pain. And those can be burning, shooting, electric, and regular pain medications don't work well for them. So there was a 2024 systematic review that looked at 14 randomized controlled trials and found that 13 out of those 14 showed statistically significant reduction in neuropathic pain scores after cannabinoid treatment. So that's pretty good, but there is some nuance. There's something called the Cochrane Review, which is like a gold standard of evidence synthesis, and looked at over 20 trials and more than 2,100 patients and concluded that even when improvements were observed, the effect sizes were often not large enough to make a meaningful difference in their actual functioning of the person. The American Heart Association acknowledges that there might be some benefit, but there is some guideline against inhaled forms because of some risks. We'll go into risks later. So there's possibly some real benefit. And I think MS is one of the places they're really looking at helping that, which is actually the next thing we'll get into. So there's a medication called nabiximols. Its brand name is called Sativex, which is a mouth spray that delivers a standardized combination of THC and CBD, and it is approved for MS-related spasticity in 29 countries, but not the US. So we have data on that one because it's approved in 29 countries. So that's pretty solid. Large trials, 40% of patients continue to see some meaningful relief for months to years. The US trial that they didn't meet its primary endpoint. So right now it's stuck in limbo and hasn't been approved in the US. So there's some of the strong, possible things that we feel like we could eventually get it approved for. What are some of the other things that you've heard that, because I have a couple of the other things that you've heard that people use it for?
Well, you kind of said it already. To increase appetite.
Right. Yeah. So like nausea, some of the things. So the nausea we have, like I said, in the one medication that's approved for chemotherapy and HIV. For regular other things that people are sort of using it from the dispensaries for, but without real, medicinal, we'll say, studies on
sleep.
Sleep. Yeah, that's a big one. So sleep I have over here, insomnia. So that one's nuanced. Non-CBD cannabinoids do show modest short-term sleep improvements, but there are some caveats. So the research doesn't show improvement in actual sleep architecture. So you feel like you sleep better, but the sleep isn't necessarily more restorative because it cannabis can disrupt your sleep during withdrawal and can create a cycle of continued use. Technically, the World Sleep Society is not currently recommended for that use, and average THC potency in dispensary products is between 19 and 21% and even higher. And so that can cause a little bit of a dependence. And so it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing. Like I can't sleep because I didn't get the cannabis, medicine that I'm usually using or
but that's
whatever.
How a lot of the sleep meds are.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't say it's any worse than anything else. Yes. So acute pain. So we talked about nerve pain, but acute pain, they really don't have much. They've looked at some short-term trials and the mean difference compared to placebo was really statistically not significant. So they cannot distinguish it from placebo. Depression, where things become a little more concerning. People try and use cannabis to manage their mood, but observational data shows that they report feeling better, but there's no evidence that it treats depression. It might be that less depressed people are more likely to use cannabis recreationally, but they can't really figure out causation from that. Mm-hmm. There were some trials that showed no improvement in depression symptoms, and 50% of participants in those trials developed anxiety or psychotic symptoms. So obviously not desirable. And 29% higher risk of depression among cannabis users, and increased suicidality. The major psychiatric associations recommend against using cannabis specifically for depression. PTSD, which is another area of big interest. Like a lot of people who have these things are wanting anything to help them. Like, I don't blame anybody who's trying things. We're just looking at evidence here, to see if there's anything real data wise. Anything one day, once we can get controlled studies with specific doses and specific compounds, it's going to be a lot different than what we're doing now, which is a lot of observational studies. But the VA did update their PTSD clinical practice guidelines in 2023, and is strongly against cannabis for PTSD treatment. And the data basically shows one randomized trial in this space, 80 veterans comparing high THC, high CBD, and balanced THC to CBC versus placebo. And there was no difference in PTSD between any of the groups. So I know, like, we're grasping for anything. We've talked a little bit about PTSD before, but it's just not there right now.
Yeah.
And then Alzheimer's, there's like a theoretical rationale because cannabinoids have like a neuroprotective property in lab studies. The actual clinical trial reviews says the evidence is pretty low for that one. And we talked about anxiety, and basically we're showing more of the opposite effect, that it can actually increase anxiety and psychosis.
Now, I've heard, and I don't know like the truth or just, the kind of placebo effect, but I've heard some people say, oh, well, it's only certain strains make me feel more anxious than others.
Right. And that's the thing. Like we said, all these compounds and different strains and cultivations, until we purify the actual things and test those individually, that's the only way we're going to be able to piece out what can help and what can't. Because you can't compare one strain from one dispensary to another one, and there's too many chemical compounds to do that. So I think that there's still a lot of research to be had here. There are some risks. So we did mention, psychosis. That's a big one. High potency THC. These are like averaging 19 and 21%, higher than what was used back in Cheech and Chong's day, right? And increased psychosis and generalized anxiety. So that's a big one. Also, chronic use can show deficits in memory, learning, executive function, and they are reversible. But you ever hear of somebody being like burnt out or short-term memory loss because they're smoking too much? Like, I remember friends in college being like, wow, like, I think this is getting to me. I think I need to take a break because I can't remember things, or I'm slow on the uptake. It does reverse, luckily, but there's definitely an effect there. And then we don't think about this. Inhaled cannabis is still associated with some cardiovascular risk. We always think of nicotine in cigarettes, but there is still a risk for inhaled. And that, we also trying to piece out traditionally smoked, whether it be in a joint, a pipe, a bong, whatever it may be, versus now the newer vape versions, which we really don't know a whole lot about. So that's something that we have to think about, though, that could affect their heart. And then, of course, cannabis use during pregnancy is a no-no. Low birth weight, small for gestational age, NICU admissions. And then the last thing, which is we don't always think about this. We were always, I think, taught that cannabis is not habit forming or not addictive in the typical way that something like heroin is. But there is something called cannabis use disorder.
Yes.
And that does develop.
There's the physiological addiction. It's the psychological addiction.
Right. So it develops in about 29% of medical users. And it's something we don't really know too much about, but it is a real thing. And then here's the other one. So we talk about cannabis use for nausea, but do we know that there's an opposite of that? Cannabis hyperemesis, which means...
I don't like talking about emesis.
Yes, lots of vomiting. So it's a condition where heavy users develop like cyclical debilitating nausea and vomiting, and they can come every few weeks to months. And it's kind of confusing because people have been using it for years, decades without problems, and they can come out of nowhere. So the symptom that's diagnostic, this is very interesting, or what we call like in medicine pathognomonic for something, is patients get relief from a hot shower or bath. So if they have this crazy nausea and the only thing that makes them better is a hot shower, it's cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. It's weird.
I'm just thinking, I'm like nauseous. The last thing I want is hot. I want to cool down.
Yeah, but this is how you know that's what it is versus some other cause of nausea. Standard things we use like Zofran don't work for this. So what's interesting is droperidol, which is the Marinol we talked about, which is just giving them more THC. Capsaicin cream, which is like the hot pepper, like, that we use in our joints to distract the pain.
Yeah.
Actually can help. And the only real true treatment is stopping. And most people, if they completely stop for 10 days, will actually turn around. Mm. So it's interesting because we always talk about it helping with nausea, but it can actually cause a severe issue. And I think it's something that we used to see a little, but now because we live in a state with legal recreational use, I think it's something we're going to be seeing more and more because it's a lot more pervasive that everybody's using it and it's like not a big deal anymore. Right. Yeah. So it used to be like you had to go find somebody, you had a dealer, you had somebody to buy it from. It was very shady. Now you can just walk in and buy it. So it's a lot more broadly used. So we're going to see this a lot more.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I don't know if you've come across this with any patients, is using it throughout the day. So not like...
Did you really ask me if I've ever seen that in patients?
But what I'm saying, well, no, I mean like more so, meaning that like it's not somebody who's just using it at night to go to sleep.
Oh, no, I see people regularly that are vaping throughout the day, marijuana.
Right. Yes. And that's what... So I had a patient who was telling me this. He's a functional person who's going to work and doing this, but he's talking about how he can't really keep things as organized on the up and up like he should. And he's a little more distracted and whatever. And I'm like, what would you think if I had a glass of wine throughout the day while I'm during my work day? Like, do you think that would be like, well, you know what I mean? Like,
I would also say the people who are doing that probably wouldn't care if their provider was doing it because that, they just have a mentality about like whatever helps,
But like, you have to equate it similarly to alcohol in that recreational use means not during your normal function. It shouldn't be when you're driving. It shouldn't be when you're trying to function in a professional manner in any way, to me at least. I mean, and legally too. I mean, you're not supposed to be driving intoxicated in any way, shape, or form. So it's just very interesting because of vapes that people can just like... a little vape, like every few seconds or every few minutes.
And I think that almost feeds into more frequent and higher use because it's so quick and dirty that it's like, a couple months ago, I had a patient who typically when I'm doing my intake for testing, I will ask about use. And unless somebody is clearly having an issue, I just assume that they know, hey, don't be high when you show up for your testing. Until a few months ago when we could smell her walk in the door. Mm-hmm. And it was so strong and so overpowering that the psychometrist had to keep the door open during testing. And of course, everybody's like, what do I do? What do I do? I was like, I'll talk to her. And, I went up to her and said, hey, have you been smoking today? Smoking weed today? And she's like, oh yeah. I said, well, that could impact your test results. She's like, well, I smoke all the time, so it's just going to be what I'm like all the time. I said, but it's going to impact your processing speed. It's going to impact things. Basically, she didn't want to hear what I had to say about why she should not be high while doing cognitive testing. So we did the testing with the caveat of, hey, she is under the influence of this during this testing. So this is the results as per under the influence. But I think she was one of those people who was to the point where she is smoking all day, every day. So to ask her to stop for one day for testing was like, you're crazy. I can't do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the difference. Whereas I think before it was a little bit more reserved for, I'm going to chill out when I get home at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And now it's all day. Just a little bit, context sort of, the gaps in the evidence are because we can't do the real research. It's very difficult in the US, at least specifically. It's still a Schedule 1 federally, even though it's decriminalized in, I think it's 38 states have legalized medical cannabis and 24 has legalized recreational. So there's still barriers, though, to this being studied. Until recently, federally approved researchers could only get cannabis from a single government site at the University of Mississippi, and the THC potency was much lower in the samples that they were using. So it was very difficult. Internationally, some other countries have done more. So Canada has medical cannabis since 2001. UK approved it in 2018 for specific conditions. Israel is conducting cannabis research since the 90s and has actually some of the most data on PTSD, chronic pain, and inflammatory things. And Germany legalized medical cannabis in 2017. It's still a mixed picture worldwide, but I do think that once we can isolate all of those compounds and study them individually, I think we'll have true answers. I think there's something there. And I think neuropathic pain, pain for MS, seizure disorders, some of these neurologic things, I think we're in good shape for that to help. But right now we're kind of just in a weird sort of in-between thing. As far as, at least in our state, the way medical marijuana works, it's not like I can write you a marijuana prescription. So what happens is you have to go onto the state website, you fill out a bunch of paperwork, and then you have to go to a provider who is licensed by the state of New Jersey in order to say that you meet one of the conditions that it's considered helpful for. And then you basically can go into the same dispensaries now that the recreational is for, but there you don't pay taxes, I believe, and you have a certain percentage discount on it.
And you have access to different stuff.
Slightly different things, right? Exactly. Versus what the recreational is getting, because the medical law came out first. A lot of people who criticize the law say that they haven't allowed for home grow. So, they are still sort of forced to spend a lot of money. I'm wondering where all the tax money's coming from this. You would think this would be a booming thing that the state would be making a ton of money from, but I don't think that's helped us in our taxes at all. Right?
I'm not making a comment on that because the money's going somewhere.
Right. I just feel like this is such a booming business that it would.
Well, one thing that you didn't mention is you have to pay for a medical card just to get the card. Before you even get a prescription, before you even get to try it, you have to pay, and it's something like $200, and you have to renew it every year.
Right.
And that's a cost going somewhere.
Right. There is absolutely a cost. There's absolutely a cost disparity, among people. I do think that there are some programs for financial stuff, so you have to look into your specific state. We can only speak for what we know in our state. I think it varies across, but there's definitely things that can hold you back from being able to get that but I guess in the end, that $200, if you're saving money, if you're going to do it anyway and you can save money on the taxes and the percentage off, hopefully you make your money back at some point. But it is a little bit tricky to do, and most people don't know how. They ask me and I have to say, I can't just write you a script for that. You gotta do this whole process.
Well, and I've just heard from people who have gone through the process and do have legitimate medical reasoning to pursue that, because a lot of them had done it before it became recreationally legal. A lot of them have now just reverted to just doing recreational use because they're saving some of that money with the card and all that. And the tax break wasn't significant enough for them to just be able to walk into a dispensary and recreationally get whatever they want instead of having to wait for a prescription. And then there's limitations to that, just like your regular medical prescription. You only get 30 pills a month, when you refill this prescription. So same thing with medical marijuana. You only get X amount per month. And so some people are kind of using that recreational for medical use, even though it's not approved medical use.
Yep. So I didn't mention, which I should have at the top of the episode, the whole reason we did this episode, because this comes out on 4/20.
Yes. And then, like I said before, it isn't 4/20 the penal code, so let me look it up.
I don't know. Yeah, is it?
That's what I heard. Let's see what the interwebs tell me. The California Penal Code 420 is willfully and unlawfully hindering, obstructing access to federal public lands.
So not it. All right. So say, where does 420 come in relation to marijuana? I think it's from the movie. They flash random things on the screen, like subliminal messages.
It says misconception. It is not a code related to cannabis or a police radio signal code for cannabis.
But is it the number that they flash on the screen in Reefer Madness?
Probably, but I feel like 420 comes from somewhere else. Where does not where can I find Irish potatoes? I did that already today. 420 is a cannabis culture term referring to the consumption of cannabis and the counterculture holiday on April 20th, 420, which we were just talking about. Originated in 1970s with a group of teenagers in San Rafael, California, known as the Waldos, who used the term as a code to meet and smoke at 4:20 p.m. And then it was later spread through Grateful Dead circles, code for consuming cannabis at a certain date or a certain time.
Okay. So what do they flash on the screen in Reefer Madness? Because I saw them flash some screen. It was so quick. What do they flash on the screen? Reefer Madness. Okay. Because there was something that flashed on the screen. Numbers. It was weird. The text is "Tell your children" is flashed on the screen. No, there's some
and
other
you
random
decided
bleep.
it was 420 because you knew 420 and you can't.
There was some other weird, it was so brief, and I should have gone back.
See, that's an entire episode that we could do about subliminal messaging.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, there is some weird thing that like it glitches for a moment and something flashed on the screen. I don't know what it was. I don't know, people.
Subliminal messaging. Look that up.
No, you need to do a whole thing on that for sure. Absolutely, positively.
I feel like anything that I would do, people have already heard like colloquially before. Like there's not really more to it than that. Well, I'm just looking at what is the subliminal messaging in Reefer Madness. It says "Tell your children." That's what it is.
But maybe that's it was like in like a weird like greenish, I think, color on the screen. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. It says the film breaks the fourth wall to scare parents, suggesting that events could happen to their children. Tell your children flashes on the screen. Yeah, that's what it says. Sorry.
All right. Well, people.
Tell your children.
Imbibe in any substance that you appropriately, safely, in moderation. This is not telling you to use or not use. Right. But, I mean, I think of all of the things out there, this is not the worst thing. And I think there's definitely some research to be had. And I think one day we will glean some actual things from this that will help people. Cool?
Yes. Agreed. No, I fell down the rabbit hole of then looking into things about the musical version of it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. Maybe I'll put that on and fall asleep to it and have weird dreams.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it says it's a parody of the original. So I think it's meant to be silly.
So it's meant for me to, fall asleep.
Well, here's a question. How did they spell marijuana in the original?
With an H, not a J. Yes.
Marijuana.
Yes, because it was a Mexican marijuana, even though it's a J in Spanish. But
because white people don't know that the J is soft.
I know people are confusing, but anyway, it's a trip. Watch it, and it was free wherever I streamed it. It was free. I did not pay for it.
You shouldn't pay for it because it is giving you an important message.
Yes. Tell your children. All right. Thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers. Happy 420 / St. Patrick's Day. We're in 2 different timelines.
But both of them, you can have a drink or a smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.